The FISA application says, quote, the FBI believes that Carter Page has been collaborating and conspiring with the Russian government. There is probable cause that such activities involve or are about to involve violations of the criminal statutes of the United States. The document accuses you of being a, quote, agent of a foreign power. Were you?
Jake, this is so ridiculous. It's just beyond words. You know, it's you're talking about misleading the courts. It's just so misleading going through those 400 plus page documents. You know, where do you even begin? It's literally a complete joke, and it only continues. It's just really sad.
Well, were you ever an agent of a foreign power? Did you ever advise the Kremlin or work with the Kremlin on anything?
Look, Jake, no, I've never been an agent of the foreign power by any stretch of the imagination. You know, I may have, back in the G20 when they were getting ready to do that in St. Petersburg, I might have participated in a few meetings that a lot of people, including people from the Obama administration, were sitting in on in Geneva, Paris, et cetera. But I've never been anywhere near what's being described herein.
But so you have advised the Kremlin in the past. That was 2013, that G20 meeting, I believe.
Look, there were experts from around the world talking about energy issues, and I was one of countless myself and a lot of academics and business people who were involved in these various discussion sessions, but it was nothing.
But you did advise the Kremlin. I mean, I just want to make it clear. You did advise the Kremlin back in 2013 or 2012, somewhere in there.
Jake, it's really spin. I mean, I sat in on some meetings, but to call me an advisor, I think is way over the top.
Except in a 2013 letter you wrote it says, quote, over the past half year, I have had the privilege to serve as an informal advisor to the staff of the Kremlin in preparation for the presidency of the G20 summit next month, where energy issues will be a prominent point on the agenda. That's August 2013. That's yourself calling yourself an informal advisor to the Kremlin.
Informal, having some conversations with people. I mean, this is really nothing and just an attempt to distract from the real crimes that are shown in this misleading document. Page 8, it says, it talks about disguised propaganda, including the planting of false or misleading articles, which is exactly what this is. So that's kind of the pot calling the kettle black by Mr. Comey and co.
One of the things that's interesting is the documents make it clear that they were relying on information from Christopher Steele, but not only on information from Christopher Steele. It includes a FISA warrant and 3 renewals in which officials of both the Obama administration and the Trump administration over several months assert that you're an agent of a foreign power, and then it was signed off, the FISA application and then 3 renewals, by 4 judges, all of them appointed by Republicans. So this isn't just Christopher Steele or James Comey. This is many, many people over 2 administrations, 4 judges appointed by Republicans over and over, believing that you are an agent of a foreign power. How do you respond to that?
Actually, it'd be a good question for them, Jake, is whether they believe that what they did was appropriate now. Again, they were misled. And if people are giving them, typically when the Department of Justice is giving a court information, I think it's reasonable for a judge to believe that that's true. Unfortunately, Mr. Berman, Jeffrey Berman, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, has been doing similar things, including a number of false pleadings in my case there. So I'm hoping that Department of Justice will take steps to start correcting the false record in a number of courts. The FISA is just the first part. Let's see what they do in Southern District of New York to try to correct the record.
Most of the FISA application, as you know, has been redacted, the publicly released version, but some of the material in there is there. Let's talk about some of the things in there. It says, quote, the FBI believes Carter Page has been the subject of targeted recruitment by the Russian government, and then it's redacted, and then it says, undermine and influence the outcome of the 2016 U.S. presidential election in violation of U.S. criminal law. It says that the Russians were trying to recruit you. We know you've said that you went to Russia in the summer of 2016 to deliver a commencement address. Is it not a possibility that Russians were trying to recruit you, even if you didn't take the bait? Is that not possible? It seems to me like that would be their job, and you were working for Trump. You'd worked with the Kremlin in the past. That would be a reasonable thing for them to try to do.
It's totally unreasonable, Jake, and it actually speaks to another misleading testimony related to the indictments that Eric Holder and Preet Bharara submitted on January 2015, talking about that prior case. And, a lot of that is incorrect spin. That individual, Mr. Podobny, a young diplomat in New York, I talked with him about my class. We had coffee one time. I met him at a conference at Asia Society. We met once for coffee, and I gave him some of my class notes, that my students at New York University were looking at. And it was in one ear and out the other. He never asked me to do anything. I mean, it's just so preposterous.
Well, let me ask you, you keep saying this is spin, but if you could just directly answer the questions, it would be great.
Sure.
It says the application also says that you, quote, established relationships with Russian government officials, including Russian intelligence officers. You're telling me that they pulled that out of thin air? You have no relationships with Russian government officials? You've already told me and this audience that you were an informal advisor to the Kremlin in 2013. You have relationships with Russian government officials, right?
Well, let's see what they're referring to specifically. As you correctly noted, there's a ton of information that's blacked out. If you read Mr. Clapper and Co.'s DNI report of January 6, 2017, there's a big, long section in there about how RT and Sputnik, these Russian propaganda agencies, allegedly were influencing the elections. I mean, now we know that through these documents that the defamatory article of September 23rd, 2016, was used as a central source of this. So really, again, it's another situation of the pot calling the kettle black. And the fact that you have this $500 million plus a year organization, Broadcasting Board of Governors, funding this ridiculous smear campaign.
But Carter, you didn't answer. I mean, you have relationships with Russian government officials, true? Yes?
Well, let's see what they're talking about.
I'm just asking you a straight question. Do you have relationships with Russian government officials? I can tell you I don't. But then again, you lived in Russia, you're an academic, you've worked in energy in Russia, you went there in 2016 to speak at a commencement address. Do you have relationships with Russian government officials?
Well, the main one that they're focusing on, Jake, if you read through the full 400 plus pages,
I did,
are these Mr. Sechin and Mr. Devyakin.
Yeah.
Both of whom I've never met, spoke with, communicated with in my entire life.
You've never spoken, just to make sure the people at home understand, the application says that you spoke with Igor Sechin, who's the president of a Russian energy company and a close associate of Vladimir Putin, and it charges that you two discussed in 2016, quote, prospects for an associated move to lift Ukraine-related Western sanctions against Russia. So you're saying you've never in your life spoken with Igor Sechin?
Never in my life. And, it's really sad. We're talking about election influence campaigns, Jake. Kellyanne Conway had to answer these questions. You had a very good interview with her on September 25th, 2016, asking her about a range of campaign issues. And since it was put on the table 2 days earlier, that Friday, it was a question you brought up, asking about these things. And, Kellyanne was someone who had recently joined the campaign. I never had any relationship, or I've never spoken with her in my life. So, I mean, it's just a real misinformation. And, you were very fair in terms of asking the questions, but it really put her on the spot. And it is just really a sad state of affairs with this election interference campaign by the Democrats.
You still haven't answered my question about whether you have any relationship with any Russian government officials. You've said that you do not have one with Igor Sechin, and you do not have one. You've never spoken with Devyakin, who is a Russian internal affairs officer, who the FISA document says that Devyakin told you that the Kremlin had compromising material related to Hillary Clinton. You're denying that that happened too?
Totally false. And, again, that's directly from the Dodgy dossier, which was eventually revealed on January 10th of last year. It's just absolutely preposterous.
Did anyone, at any time, any Russian government official, at any time in 2016, talk to you about either lifting the sanctions or compromising material that they claim to have on Hillary Clinton?
On compromising material, not one word. I was hearing about things when you were hearing about things in the mainstream media. You know, look, I mean, when I was there in July of 2016, you know, a few people might have brought it up in passing. But, you know, again, it's a major economic issue. And so, you know, there may have been a loose conversation. I'm very careful in terms of, you know, making sure that there's a clear record. There was nothing in terms of any nefarious behavior.
Okay, so you did discuss the sanctions with individuals in Russia. Did you ever hear from a Russian, not from the media, from a Russian, anything about compromising material about Hillary Clinton?
Never. Yeah.
All right, Carter Page, thank you so much for coming this morning and taking our questions. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jake. Good to see you.